The situation in Syria hangs by a thread. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a stark warning in May 2025. He stated that Syria's new transitional government faces an imminent risk of collapse. This collapse, he cautioned, could occur within weeks. Such a development would not merely be a political setback for the fledgling administration. It would likely plunge the nation, still reeling from over a decade of brutal conflict, back into the maelstrom of a full-scale civil war. The fragility of the current peace is palpable, a thin veneer over deep societal fractures and unresolved grievances that threaten to erupt once more. The potential for renewed widespread violence is incredibly high. Secretary Rubio's assessment paints a grim picture of what might follow. A descent into another civil war would undoubtedly exacerbate the already severe humanitarian crisis. Millions of Syrians have been displaced, and many rely on aid that could be disrupted. Furthermore, the very territorial integrity of Syria could be at stake. The prospect of the country splintering into smaller, warring enclaves is a terrifying possibility. This fragmentation would create power vacuums, making it easier for extremist groups to gain footholds and further destabilize the entire region, creating new waves of chaos. This warning from a high-ranking US official underscores the precarious nature of Syria's current political landscape. The fall of Bashar al-Assad's Ba'ath Party regime in December 2024, after 13 long years of civil war, was a momentous event. It offered a glimmer of hope for a new beginning. However, building a stable and inclusive government from the ashes of such prolonged devastation is an immense challenge. The transitional authority, led by President Ahmed al-Sharaa since late January 2025, is grappling with enormous political and economic turmoil, making its survival a daily struggle against formidable odds. The international community, particularly the United States, is watching with bated breath. Secretary Rubio's words are not just an observation, but a call to acknowledge the gravity of the moment. The potential for Syria to unravel again is a scenario with devastating implications reaching far beyond its borders. The efforts to support the new government are therefore critical. The success or failure of this transitional period will significantly shape the future of Syria and the broader Middle East. The coming weeks are crucial, and the pressure on all involved parties is immense as they try to avert another catastrophic conflict. A collapse of the new Syrian government would unleash a torrent of devastating consequences. Firstly, Syrian society, already traumatized and fractured, would bear the immediate brunt. Renewed conflict would mean more death, more displacement, and the deepening of sectarian divides that were papered over but never truly healed. The social fabric, painstakingly being rewoven, could be torn asunder completely. Imagine families once again fleeing their homes, children growing up amidst constant violence, and the loss of another generation to war. This human cost is almost unimaginable, yet it is a very real possibility if stability is not maintained and the government falters. Regionally, the shockwaves would be immense. Neighboring countries like Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq, already burdened by previous refugee crises, would likely face new influxes of desperate people. This would strain their resources and could potentially reignite internal tensions within these nations. Furthermore, regional powers with vested interests in Syria might be drawn back into the conflict, either directly or through proxies. This could escalate existing rivalries and create new flashpoints, turning Syria once again into an arena for broader geopolitical struggles. The stability of the entire Middle East, a region perennially on edge, would be severely compromised by such a development. Internationally, the implications are equally dire. A failed state in Syria would become a breeding ground for extremist ideologies and terrorist organizations, much like it was in the past. Groups like ISIS, though weakened, could seize the opportunity to reconstitute and expand their operations, posing a direct threat to global security. This would necessitate renewed and costly counter-terrorism efforts. Moreover, a destabilized Syria would complicate international diplomacy on a range of issues, from arms control to energy security, impacting relations between major world powers and challenging the efficacy of international institutions tasked with maintaining peace. Secretary Rubio himself highlighted this interconnectedness, stating, "When Syria's unstable, the region becomes unstable." This simple yet profound observation captures the essence of the problem. Syria is not an isolated case. Its fate is intrinsically linked to the well-being of its neighbors and the broader international order. The potential for a humanitarian catastrophe, a resurgence of terrorism, and heightened regional conflict makes the stabilization of Syria a matter of urgent global concern. The international community cannot afford to be complacent when the stakes are this high, and the echoes of past failures still resonate loudly. The United States has articulated a policy of supporting the new Syrian government's efforts to succeed. Secretary Rubio emphasized the importance of engaging with President al-Sharar's administration to improve its chances of averting another civil war and fostering regional stability. This engagement is multifaceted, involving diplomatic outreach and practical assistance. One significant move was President Donald Trump's announcement, just days before Rubio's stark warning of plans to lift sanctions on Syria. This decision, revealed during the Saudi-US Investment Forum 2025 in Riyadh, signals a shift in US strategy, aiming to provide the transitional government with much-needed economic breathing room. The rationale behind potentially lifting sanctions is to facilitate support from neighboring countries. Secretary Rubio suggested that easing these economic restrictions could empower Syria's neighbors to assist in building robust governance mechanisms. This includes strengthening institutions, restoring essential services, and creating an environment conducive to economic recovery. US officials, including embassy staff in Turkey, are actively coordinating with local partners. Their focus is on assessing Syria's immediate needs, particularly in critical areas like law enforcement, which is fundamental for establishing order and the rule of law in a post-conflict society, a task of monumental proportions. However, this support comes as the new Syrian leadership under President Ahmed al-Sharaa navigates an incredibly difficult path. Al-Sharaa, who led anti-regime forces, was declared president for a transitional period in late January 2025. By March 2025, he had signed a constitutional declaration outlining a 5-year transitional phase for the country. A core challenge for this new government is addressing the crimes of the Assad regime. Holding perpetrators accountable while simultaneously fostering social cohesion is a delicate balancing act. Efforts are underway to establish groups to find the thousands who disappeared and to compensate victims, though the complexity of legal proceedings is daunting. The international community's role extends beyond just the United States, while US actions, such as Rubio's statements and potential policy shifts towards increased diplomatic or even military involvement to prevent destabilization, are significant. A broader coalition of support is necessary. The success of Syria's transition hinges on a concerted international effort to provide financial aid, technical expertise, and political backing. The fragility of the new government means that any support must be carefully calibrated and sustained over the long term to give Syria a genuine chance at lasting peace and reconstruction after so many years of turmoil. Syria's history is marked by periods of political instability which cast a long shadow on the current scenario. The Ba'ath Party regime, which Bashar al-Assad's family dominated, held power from 1963 until its dramatic collapse in December 2024. This long period of authoritarian rule, while maintaining a certain kind of order, suppressed dissent and created deep-seated grievances among various segments of the population. The subsequent 13-year civil war, which ended with Assad fleeing to Russia, further entrenched these divisions. Understanding this historical context is crucial for appreciating the monumental task facing the new transitional government as it attempts to forge a new, inclusive national identity. Amidst this political turmoil, the threat of extremist groups like ISIS remains a significant concern. ISIS perceives the new Syrian administration as a major threat to its ambitions. While the new government is committed to combating terrorism, its current limited capacity poses a challenge in effectively countering these well-entrenched militant organizations. Recognizing this, the United States has committed to maintaining a temporary military presence in Syria. The primary objective of this deployment is to prevent ISIS from reconstituting its forces or strengthening its operational capabilities, ensuring that the hard-won gains against the group are not reversed during this vulnerable transitional phase. Recent diplomatic engagements highlight the active efforts to stabilize Syria. High-level meetings have taken place, signaling a commitment from key international players. President Donald Trump met with Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa in Saudi Arabia, a significant gesture of US backing for the new leadership. Furthermore, Secretary of State Marco Rubio held talks with Syria's Foreign Minister Asad al-Shaibani in Turkey. These discussions are vital for coordinating international support, aligning strategies, and addressing the complex array of challenges confronting Syria, from security to economic reconstruction and political reconciliation, making every diplomatic overture critical. Despite the deep-seated historical divisions and the ongoing threat of extremism, Secretary Rubio has also noted a historically unifying aspect of Syrian national identity, the coexistence of various religious and ethnic groups. For centuries, diverse communities have lived alongside each other in Syria. Tapping into this legacy of pluralism could be a key element in rebuilding the nation and fostering a sense of shared destiny. The path ahead is fraught with peril, but these diplomatic efforts, coupled with international support and a commitment to addressing both past injustices and present threats, offer a fragile hope for a more stable and peaceful future for all Syrians.